My life is quite easy here. I have a job that I enjoy. It doesn't pay amazingly, but I enjoy it. I do feel like I'm someone who runs away from my problems. I'm kind of like in my own bubble, which maybe is a little closed-minded and like selfish, but maybe that's true if I'm honest with myself.
All right, let's get this interview started. How are you doing, John?
I'm really good, thank you.
Today we're gonna talk about the concept of local, where you live, where you work, where you like to go on your day offs, where you try to avoid, things like that. And before we dive into it, we have a couple beers in front of us. Do you want to briefly explain to us what we have here?
We've got some beers from Wild Wave Brewery in Busan. I've got a Saison and you've got a sour beer there, I believe.
Nice. Maybe you can start with where we met.
Beginning of last summer, maybe spring, we were working at a very busy sandwich bagel shop in Yeonhui-dong, right? Everything Bagel. We ran into each other there, making sandwiches and baking bread.
What is your current job?
I'm a packaging assistant for a small craft soda producer based in Eunpyeong on the border with Goyang. Public transport's definitely something we should talk about as a local. That's definitely on my list of things I love about living in Seoul. Coming from a country that has really shitty public transport, living here is convenient and easy to travel. Also comparatively very cheap. I don't know how it compares to Canada.
Very cheap. Compared to Toronto. I don't know about other cities.
Toronto.
Toronto, yeah.
In the UK, most recently I was living in Manchester in the north of the country. One of the biggest problems in the UK with the public transport is that it's all privatised. So to get from one side of the city to the other, you might need to take 3 different buses. Unless you're making a return journey or you have a pass, you could be paying like man otonon just for a single journey. Bonkers. I mean, it's not like a third world country or anything. It's a modern country, but the infrastructure is very old. And the fares for trains are not set. If you're going last minute, it's more expensive.
Kind of like flights.
Yeah, exactly like flights.
Interesting.
It's interesting, but it ain't good. My wife always teases me. My wife is Korean, so you'll have to forgive me if I do this during the interview, but my wife always says that I talk shit on like things from home, and I love everything about Korea. That's not 100% true. I wouldn't say I'm... Maybe I am a little bit negative about life at home in the UK. I think it's because my eyes are wide open in Korea because I don't understand everything that's happening around me. So it's a bit more attention grabbing. It's very fast paced, it's very modern. And on the flip side, there's also centuries of tradition as well. Culture, architecture and history. So I found that really stimulating and interesting.
Do you want to maybe talk about how you ended up in Korea?
My wife and I were working for a tech travel company based in the UK, but with global offices. She was offered the position to move to a sister company based in Seoul and offered a good relocation package. I was growing increasingly frustrated working in a corporate environment, having done so for best part of 15 years, and I was kind of fed up. She didn't initially apply for the job and somebody got the position, and then through some quirk of fate, the person who took the position, she didn't end up taking the position, and the position came up again. And everybody was like, yes, go for it, go on, do it. She had several interviews remotely, and like within a week she got the job. That was it, we were making plans to leave.
That was when?
2019 winter. If I'm honest, definitely me, I don't know about my wife, but I think we were both a little bit reluctant to go from living in a house to living in an apartment.
In a Korean apartment?
Yeah, Korean apartment. I've never lived in an apartment full stop before in my life. I kind of liken it now to living in a hotel in some respects, because you never see your neighbours. You live on levels, there's elevators. But actually I quite like it now because, and this sounds really silly, but it's really convenient to clean up.
Where do you live?
Yeonhui-dong. It's a cool neighborhood on the other side of the river.
So you've been settled in Yeonhui-dong for almost
2.5 years.
2.5 years. How's that been so far?
We've started to make some local friends, mainly like through local businesses who we've interacted with on a regular basis. So we have a local friend who owns a coffee shop, Cafe Baños, definitely check it out. And I visited there one winter when I was cycling, and the reception I got was really warm. So I kept on going back. We chatted and become friends. But something we could talk about in terms of becoming a local. When I arrived here, I found it quite hard to make friends. Maybe because the way I want to make friends is within the confines of the things that I'm interested in. Beer, cycling, walking, hiking, whatever. I miss having friends that I've known for years and years and years. Friends you don't have to make any effort with, it's just effortless to hang out with.
Even with your foreigner friends here?
I'm not saying I don't have that with my friends now, but like I have friends back home where we could just go out for a beer and talk endlessly about nothing and it wouldn't be awkward or difficult because you've known them forever.
Yeah, that's a very good topic to talk about friends.
Sure.
You didn't go to school here, like you didn't grow up here, so the majority of people that you meet or interact with are your coworkers. And Korean workplaces are not the most comfortable places to make friends.
Because it's very serious, the way that Koreans work together, or?
In Korean culture, everything is kind of relationship based. As in, there's different ways to address people depending on the relationship.
Seniority.
When you're addressing someone as John, it's way easier to become friends with this person than when you're addressing this person as manager. Like whenever you have to call this person because of work, you're constantly being reminded that this person is my manager. So it's very difficult. I remember when I first came to Korea, I was working in an architecture office and I had extremely long hours, and I just remember like on a weekend not having any friend to hang out with or talk about my work life.
But that was because you're working so hard though, because you had no time to spend on developing those relationships.
Yeah,
right?
that too. So going back to the topic of local, maybe we can talk about like your favorite hangout spots.
In my neighborhood, you've got Yeonhui-dong, which is quite close. So I like going to Beer Post Bar and a little bit less so Beer Varna, because that's become a bit hip and trendy. There's too many young kids there. In terms of hangout spots though, I don't know if you've ever been to England, but pub culture in England is very different. I don't think I've ever experienced the same sort of feeling you get, because I think here it's more bar culture than it is like pub culture.
What exactly is the difference?
Well, bar culture is a bit more stylized, a bit more cool and unfriendly, if that makes sense. Whereas pub culture in England is very old-fashioned, and whilst that could be seen as uncool, it's very relaxed and informal, and it's literally about people going to a place to socialise and drink. Although having said that, drinking culture in England is very different to Korea. In England, what you tend to do is drink. Oh shit, I'm fucking hungry. I'm gonna eat the worst thing possible. The thing that you don't have here with pubs that you have in the UK is like, you have like a local pub. It's your pub. You know the owner. You ask them how their kids are doing. It's almost like a social network. There isn't that kind of vibe here. It's more, as I said, bar culture.
Maybe a neat way to put it is pubs in Korea, which you think are more like bars, are kind of like destinations. Like you go there.
Yeah, exactly. You're going there specifically to go
with
there.
a purpose. But I feel like the way you're explaining the pubs in Britain is kind of reminds me of like maybe the cafe culture in France.
Sure, in Paris, yeah. Speaking of cafe culture in Paris, we visited Paris and Rome with my wife's mum and two of her aunties. Entertaining or dining with Koreans was quite interesting because you have dishes that you would stereotypically or normally eat as a single plate per person. And whilst restaurants were very accommodating of Asian customers and would allow us to put the dishes in the middle of the table and serve from those plates. And again, it's something I'm more than happy to do myself, but it still felt awkward because it didn't feel normal, if that makes sense.
What makes you stay in Seoul?
I mean, honestly, again, my wife is going to criticize me for being like uber positive, but my life is quite easy here. I have a job that I enjoy. It doesn't pay amazingly, but I enjoy it. I do feel like I'm someone who runs away from my problems, and living here, because I don't fully grasp what's going on around me, I'm kind of like in my own bubble, so I can ignore all the bad things in the world and just focus on what I'm doing, which maybe is a little closed-minded and like selfish, but maybe that's true if I'm honest with myself. I used to regularly check to see what was going on at home in the UK, but that's becoming, you know, less and less. Yeah, I have a nice life here. I really can't complain about my life.
Do you and your wife consider going back ever?
Yeah, we kind of, like, my wife jokes about moving back there in like 5 years' time or something, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. There's so many things that I'm more thankful about living here. We touched on it earlier, off camera, talking about safety. I don't ever really feel unsafe in Korea. Places that I really wouldn't ever dream of going to, like back home in the UK. Like, for example, on the way down to Sindorim on the bike path. This is a dark place, there's not much lighting. It looks like something out of New York. And that kind of place I'd never entertain going to back home in the UK or in other countries, because it would be way too threatening and dangerous, because people would be hiding behind pillars like looking to mug you and stuff like that. I don't ever feel like that. My property and public property is respected here. I don't know about in Canada, but certainly I bet this is the case in America as well, for example. And in the UK, it definitely is the case. There's so many random acts of violence, vandalism, smashing stuff up, for no other reason than people bored or they've got nothing to do. Now, that doesn't happen here. You don't see it. I think one of the reasons why violent and aggressive crimes are like relatively few here, it might have something to do with the lack of drug problems. Back in the UK, there's like some serious drug problems, and I think that contributes to a lot of like organised crime. I think there's an element of foreigners who come here who just want to be expats. They don't want to try and assimilate, and that really frustrates me. I've never gravitated towards the Haebancheon Itaewon crowd, because that's something I wanted to avoid. If you only stay within your own kind, within places that speak English or speak your language, you'll never truly become a local.
I've been asking the same question. Basically, I'm going to ask you to summarize your story.
I'm John. I live in Yeonhui-dong. I believe I'm slowly becoming a local, making friends within the neighborhood. I came here from England with my wife, with a passion about Korea. I learned to make kimchi, I learned to make makgeolli, and this is all because of my relationship with my wife and enjoying Korea's culture and its vibrant, exciting lifestyle. And because I'm slowly becoming a local. Is that good enough?
That's good enough. Perfect. Done. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we could talk a lot more. I don't think we perhaps addressed